There are moments in life when loneliness tries to convince us that we are forgotten, times when the waiting feels heavy and hope seems delayed. But I want to remind you today, God has not forgotten you. He is intentional with your journey, and his love story for your life is greater than anything you could script on your own. When we talk about God's timing being perfect, it's easy to nod our heads in agreement, but living it out is often the hardest part of our journey. We live in a world that thrives on instant results. We want things now, and waiting feels like a punishment. But what looks like a delay to us is often divine preparation in God's eyes. When it comes to love, God is not just orchestrating a meeting between two people. He is aligning destinies, shaping character, and ensuring that the season is ripe for something lasting and beautiful. His timing isn't just about when you meet the right person. It's also about when your heart and their heart are ready to receive and give love in the way he intended. You see, if love were to arrive too soon, before you had healed from past wounds or learned certain lessons, it might not survive the weight of real life. Similarly, if the right person came into your life before they had gone through their own refining, the relationship could crumble under the strain of immaturity or lack of readiness. God's love for you is so deep that he refuses to let you settle for half-prepared blessings. Instead, he waits until the stage of your life is set perfectly. That's why what feels like waiting is actually a gift. It is God shielding you from something less than his best and making room for something eternal. Sometimes the temptation is to think God has forgotten. The months turn into years, and loneliness whispers lies. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe love isn't meant for you. But those whispers are not truth. The truth is that God is never late. His sense of timing is rooted in eternity, not in the clock or calendar we cling to. Every delay has purpose. Every pause is infused with wisdom. When you finally see what he was arranging, you realize the waiting was never wasted. It was protection, it was growth, it was the shaping of two hearts into a union that could withstand anything. Think of a farmer planting seeds. If he harvests too early, he ruins the crop. If he waits too long, he loses it. But in the right season, at the right time, the harvest is rich and full. That's what God does with love in our lives. He waits until the soil is fertile, until the rains have fallen, until the seed has matured into fruit. Only then does he reveal what he has been preparing. You cannot rush that process, and trying to do so only leads to heartbreak. Trusting his timing means trusting that the one who knows your future better than you know your past will never withhold what is meant for you. Let me give you a small example. There was a woman who deeply desired marriage. For years she prayed, asking God to send her someone who would love her completely. She saw her friends get engaged and married, and the ache in her heart grew. At times, she even wondered if God was listening. What she didn't know was that the man God had chosen for her was in a different city, walking through his own journey of growth and faith. He was being refined through trials, learning patience, and discovering how to lean on God's wisdom. They didn't meet until years later, but when they did, everything fit together effortlessly. The love was not rushed, nor was it forced. It was peaceful, deep, and enduring because both had been prepared for that very moment. Later, she said, "If I had met him earlier, I would not have been ready to see him for who he was. I would have missed God's gift because my heart was still unsettled." This is the beauty of God's perfect timing. He is weaving together threads you cannot see. While you're waiting, he's working. While you're praying, he's preparing. The silence of waiting is not evidence of his absence. It's proof of his precision. He wants you to have not just any love, but the right love, the kind that reflects his heart and fulfills your soul. And when it finally comes, you will realize that every tear, every unanswered question, and every lonely night was leading you to something far greater than you imagined. Trust him. His timing carries no mistakes. When we say that you are worth waiting for, it is more than just a comforting phrase. It is a declaration of your value in God's eyes. Too often, people rush into relationships out of fear, loneliness, or the pressure of seeing others move ahead. They convince themselves that something is better than nothing. And in doing so, they often settle for less than what God has lovingly prepared for them. But the truth is, You were never designed to live in the shadow of compromise. You were created with purpose, dignity, and worth. And that means God's plan for your love story is not an afterthought. It is a masterpiece in the making. Waiting in itself can feel like rejection. It can feel as though God is withholding something from you, or that others are being blessed while you are being overlooked. But in reality, delay is not denial. Delay is divine protection. When God asks you to wait, He is not being cruel. He is shielding you from relationships that would harm your heart, drain your purpose, or distract you from becoming who He called you to be. Every time you see a door close or an opportunity slip away, remember this: God is not taking something good from you. He is keeping something destructive away from you. He values you too much to let you invest your soul in someone who cannot love you the way you deserve. The beauty of being worth waiting for lies in recognizing that real love, love that reflects God's design, is not rushed, fragile, or conditional. It does not diminish your worth. It elevates it. God is preparing someone who will see you through His eyes, who will honor your journey, and who will cherish not just the surface of who you are, but the depths of your being. When that person enters your life, you will realize why every delay was necessary. The love you were praying for could not be rushed, because true love has to be aligned with divine timing, and divine timing always requires patience. Sometimes we mistake loneliness for emptiness and try to fill the void with relationships that were never meant for us. In those moments, we risk confusing attachment with love and temporary comfort with eternal connection. God knows this tendency, and in His wisdom, He protects us. He allows certain people to leave, certain plans to fail, and certain dreams to be postponed because He knows settling would only wound us more deeply in the long run. What feels like heartbreak now may actually be heaven's way of preserving you for something far greater. Think of it like this. Imagine a jeweler working on a rare diamond. If someone walked into the workshop midway and demanded to take the stone, they would receive nothing but a rough, unpolished rock. But in the hands of the craftsman, given the right amount of time, that same stone is cut, refined, and transformed into something priceless. You are that diamond. God is the craftsman. He refuses to hand you over to someone who cannot appreciate your worth. Instead, He is polishing you while also preparing the one who will see your brilliance without hesitation. That kind of love is worth the wait, and so are you. Here's a simple example to illustrate this truth. There was a young man who deeply desired marriage. In his 20s, he entered into several relationships, each time hoping he had found the one. But each time, the relationship ended painfully. Frustrated, he wondered why God kept letting him face disappointment. Years later, after maturing in faith and discovering his own identity, he met a woman who not only shared his values, but also supported his dreams. Their connection was peaceful, their respect for one another unwavering, and their love genuine. Looking back, he said, "If God had allowed me to marry any of the women I chased after before, I would have missed the woman who was truly meant for me. The wait was hard, but now I see I was worth waiting for." That is the heart of this truth. You are worth waiting for, both in God's eyes and in the eyes of the one He is preparing for you. Don't settle for half-hearted love, rushed emotions, or fleeting attention. You were not created for leftovers. You were created for the fullness of love as God intended it. So if you find yourself waiting, hold your head high. The waiting is not a punishment. It is proof of your value. It is evidence that heaven itself believes you are too precious to be mishandled. And when the right person finally steps into your life, you will see the wisdom in God's timing and the power of refusing to settle. You will realize that the delays were not losses, but layers of protection, guiding you to the love that was always meant to find you. When love is rooted in God, it carries a strength that nothing else can give. Human emotions can rise and fall like the tide. Circumstances can shift overnight, and people can change in ways we never expect. But when two hearts are united not just by feelings, but by God Himself, that love takes on a different quality. It is no longer about mere attraction or fleeting excitement. It is grounded in something eternal, something deeper than what the world calls love. Love that is rooted in God is not shallow. It is enduring, resilient, and transformative. It goes beyond the surface of romance and becomes a partnership built on faith, respect, and destiny. Many relationships begin with excitement, but fade when the storms of life arrive. When money is tight, when health declines, when disappointments come, and when misunderstandings arise, love that was built only on emotions often begins to crack. But a love that has its foundation in God is not easily shaken. It has already surrendered to something greater than personal desires. It leans on forgiveness instead of pride, on patience instead of anger, and on grace instead of resentment. That kind of love doesn't mean there won't be challenges, but it does mean there will always be strength to overcome them. A love rooted in God heals rather than harms. It speaks life into wounds that the world or past relationships may have caused. Instead of reopening scars with carelessness, it tends to them with gentleness. This love recognizes that both people are imperfect, yet it also acknowledges that God's grace is sufficient to cover every imperfection. It is not a love that demands perfection. It is a love that encourages growth because it reflects God's own love. It is patient when progress is slow, kind when mistakes are made, and enduring when others would walk away. This kind of love also honors your value. In a world where people are often treated as temporary options, where commitment can be exchanged for convenience, love rooted in God stands out as something rare and holy. It doesn't play games, manipulate emotions, or leave you questioning your worth. Instead, it affirms who you are in Christ. It values you as a treasure, not as a possession. It seeks to serve, not to control. It is not rooted in selfishness, but in the desire to see the other flourish. This love reflects the very heart of God because it is willing to give, to sacrifice, and to endure. Another unique mark of love rooted in God is that it carries purpose. It is never just about two people enjoying one another's company, though joy is part of it. It is about two destinies intertwining to fulfill something greater than themselves. When God brings two people together, he does so with intention. Their union becomes a platform to display his love, to extend his kingdom, and to influence others around them. It is more than romance. It is calling. It is more than companionship. It is destiny. Together, they are not just partners in love, they are partners in purpose. Let me give you an example to illustrate this truth. There was a couple who met later in life after both had endured broken relationships in their past. At first, they were hesitant, afraid that history might repeat itself. But from the beginning, they chose to place God at the center of their connection. They prayed together, sought wisdom from Scripture, and invited God into every part of their journey. Over time, they faced challenges, financial setbacks, health scares, and family pressures. But through it all, their love did not diminish. Instead, it deepened. When one was weak, the other carried them in prayer. When fear arose, they reminded each other of God's promises. When they could have given up, they clung to the faith that had brought them together. Their marriage became not just a safe place for themselves, but a testimony to others of how God's love sustains. People who witnessed them often said, their love is different. It's steady, it's peaceful, it's real. And the truth was simple. Their love lasted because its roots were in God. This is the essence of love that God ordains. It does not crumble under pressure. It does not fade with time. It does not wound or diminish you. Instead, it reflects Christ's heart, faithful, forgiving, patient, and enduring. It transforms ordinary romance into extraordinary purpose, turning two lives into a testimony of divine love. When God is the root, storms may come, but the tree will not fall. Time may pass, but the bond will not wither. And in the end, you will know that the love you share is not just a fleeting emotion, but a piece of eternity written into your story. Preparation before fulfillment is one of the most overlooked but powerful truths when it comes to God's timing in love. Many people view waiting as an empty stretch of time, a period filled with loneliness or unanswered prayers. But in God's eyes, waiting is never wasted. It is the space where transformation happens, where lessons are learned, where strength is built, and where both you and the one meant for you are being refined into who you need to be. Love is not just about finding the right person. It is also about becoming the right person. That is why God so often calls us into seasons of preparation before revealing the fulfillment of our desires. In preparation, God works on the heart. He uses waiting seasons to strip away insecurity, fear, and unhealthy patterns that would sabotage a future relationship. If we carry wounds from the past, he gently begins to heal them. If we hold on to unrealistic expectations or selfish tendencies, he begins to confront them. His goal is not to deprive us, but to strengthen us. Because when true love finally comes, it will require maturity, patience, and selflessness. Without preparation, even the greatest blessing can be mismanaged. At the same time, while he is preparing you, he is also preparing the person who will one day walk beside you. You may not see it, but God is molding their character, refining their dreams, and shaping their heart so that when your paths finally cross, both of you will be ready to recognize and cherish the gift of one another. Think about it. If God simply gave you what you wanted when you wanted it, without preparation, you might not have the capacity to handle it. A great love requires great readiness. That is why seasons of waiting should not be despised. They are training grounds for greatness. It is also in preparation that God deepens your dependence on him. When you feel the ache of longing, when you wrestle with the tension of waiting, you are drawn closer to his presence. You learn to lean on his promises and trust his faithfulness. That intimacy with God becomes the foundation for any future relationship. Because if you cannot find your wholeness in him, first you will look to another person to fill what only God can satisfy. Preparation, therefore, is not just about becoming a relationship ready. It is about becoming spiritually anchored. A practical example makes this even clearer. There was a young woman who, after a painful breakup, prayed for God to send her the right partner. For years, nothing seemed to happen. She watched friends marry, start families, and move on with life while she remained single. At first, she felt forgotten, but in time, she began to see what God was doing in her heart. During those years, she pursued her education, discovered her passions, and learned to stand in her identity as a daughter of God. She became stronger, wiser, and more confident in her calling. What she did not know was that across the country, the man who would one day become her husband was walking through his own preparation. He was developing his faith, building his career, and learning humility through challenges. Years later, their paths finally crossed. When they met, there was an instant sense of peace, not because they were perfect, but because they were prepared. Both had been through the refining fire of waiting. Both had grown into who they were called to be. Their relationship was not rushed or shallow. It was steady, purposeful, and deeply rooted. Looking back, the woman said, "If I had met him years earlier, I would not have recognized him for who he was. I wasn't ready then, and neither was he. But God knew the right time, and the wait was worth it." This is the heart of preparation before fulfillment. God sees what you cannot. He knows the areas that still need healing, the lessons that still need to be learned, and the timing that will bring the greatest joy. While you may feel like nothing is happening, heaven is busy arranging the details. Every season of waiting is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable of sustaining real love. So instead of despising the wait, embrace it. Let God use it to prepare you, to refine you, and to ready you for the blessing ahead. Because when the fulfillment finally comes, you will not only rejoice in the love you've found, you will also rejoice in the person you've become along the way. Recognizing true love when it comes is one of the most important lessons you can learn in life, because so many people spend years entangled in relationships that drain them, confuse them, or make them question their worth. God never intended love to leave you in constant doubt or turmoil. The kind of love he sends is not meant to be forced, manipulated, or earned. It is meant to flow naturally, bringing peace, security, and joy. True love from God is not perfect in the sense that it will never face trials, but it carries a purity that sets it apart from imitations. It is marked by respect, mutual faith, and a sense of being at home with one another. The challenge is that false love often disguises itself well. It may look attractive at first, filled with passion or charm, but in the long run, it creates confusion. You find yourself wondering if you are good enough, if you are worthy, or if you have to change parts of yourself just to be accepted. That kind of love is not love at all. It is control, insecurity, or fear masquerading as something genuine. True love, in contrast, brings clarity. It doesn't make you doubt your value. It affirms it. It doesn't leave you chasing after someone's attention. It gives freely and consistently. God's love through another person will always align with his heart. It will uplift, protect, and honor. Recognizing it requires discernment and patience. When God's hand is on a relationship, there will be peace even in uncertainty, because deep down you know you are safe. You won't have to force conversations, beg for commitment, or chase after scraps of affection. Instead, love will feel mutual, balanced, and steady. It will push you closer to God rather than further away. It will encourage you to pursue your calling, not demand that you shrink yourself to fit someone else's desires. The right person will see you as God sees you, not as someone to be used or controlled, but as a partner with equal worth and divine purpose. Think of it like water flowing in a stream. When the current is natural, the water moves smoothly, carrying everything with it. But if you try to force water uphill, it takes endless effort, frustration, and exhaustion. That's the difference between love that comes from God and love that is manufactured out of fear or desperation. True love flows, false love drains. When it is from God, the relationship has a sense of ease, even through difficulties. You know you don't have to beg or perform to be loved. It is given freely. Here's a simple but powerful example. A young man once shared his story of being in a long relationship where he constantly questioned his worth. He was always anxious, trying to please his partner, but never feeling secure. Every argument made him doubt whether he was lovable, and every silence felt like punishment. When that relationship ended, he felt broken, but over time he began to heal and pray for God's guidance. Years later, he met a woman who treated him entirely differently. From the beginning, he felt safe and respected. She did not play games with his emotions. She spoke with kindness, supported his goals, and pointed him back to God whenever he felt discouraged. Their love was not dramatic or confusing. It was steady, peaceful, and mutual. Looking back, he said, "For the first time, I realized love was not supposed to make me feel small or insecure. But there I felt like I could finally breathe. That's how I knew this was the love God had written for me." That story highlights the truth that real love does not require you to sacrifice your identity, your faith, or your peace. It doesn't pull you away from God. It draws you closer to Him. It doesn't make you compete for affection. It offers affection freely. It doesn't cause chaos in your heart. It brings calm even in the middle of challenges. And most importantly, it affirms that you are valuable, chosen, and loved. So when love comes your way, look at its fruit. Does it bring peace or confusion? Does it reflect respect or control? Does it point you toward God or distract you from Him? The right love will never make you feel like you are too much or not enough. It will feel like a gift, one you don't have to force into existence because it has been written by God's hand. And when you recognize it, you'll know, because it will feel less like striving and more like coming home. God's promise still stands, even when life makes it difficult to believe. It can be easy to assume that unanswered prayers mean God is silent or distant, but the truth is that His promises are alive and unshaken, no matter how long the wait feels. Every tear you have cried in private, every prayer whispered in the middle of the night, every moment you felt forgotten, none of it has gone unnoticed by Him. God has recorded every sigh of your heart, and He has not turned away. What He has spoken over you cannot be erased by time, disappointment, or delay. When He promises that you will be loved in the way your heart was designed to be loved, it is not a vague wish. It is a covenant grounded in His nature, and His nature cannot fail. The tension we often face is between what we believe and what we see. We believe God is faithful, but what we see in front of us sometimes looks like silence. We believe His word is true, but our present circumstances may whisper that it will never happen. This tension is where faith is tested. It is where you are invited to anchor yourself, not in feelings, but in God's character. Feelings change, circumstances shift, but His promises endure. They are not like fragile words that crumble under pressure. They are eternal truths spoken by the one who cannot lie. If God has promised love, companionship, and purpose in your relationships, then He will bring it to pass in the right season. The waiting, however, often tempts us to question, has God forgotten me? Did I miss my chance? Am I too late? These questions are natural, but they are not the truth. The truth is that God's timing is not measured by our clocks or calendars. He operates from a higher perspective. What seems delayed is often a divine arrangement, ensuring that when the promise comes to pass, it arrives in a way that reveals His glory. He is not withholding love from you. He is shaping love for you in a way that will exceed your expectations. Think of Abraham and Sarah, who were promised a child. For years they waited, and as time passed, doubt crept in. It seemed impossible, but God's promise was never in jeopardy. At the appointed time, Isaac was born, and the fulfillment of that promise became undeniable evidence of God's faithfulness. The same principle applies to your life. What God has spoken, He will do. His promise that you will be loved fully and faithfully has not expired. It is still alive, waiting for its appointed moment. Love, as God intends it, is not about chance encounters or random luck. It is intentional, prepared, and divinely orchestrated. If He has placed the desire in your heart to be loved in a way that reflects His own love, then that desire is not meaningless. It is a seed of His promise, and seeds do not remain buried forever. They break through the soil in due season, blossoming into something living and undeniable. Just because you cannot see the growth underground does not mean nothing is happening. God's promise still stands, even in silence, even in waiting. Here is a simple example. A woman once spent many years single, often battling loneliness and doubt. She had prayed countless times for a partner who would love her the way she longed to be loved, but nothing seemed to change. Eventually, she reached a point where she told God, "I will trust you even if it never happens. My life is in your hands." Months later, she met a man at a gathering who shared her faith, her values, and her vision for life. Their connection grew steadily, grounded not in rush or desperation, but in mutual respect and peace. As time passed, she realized this relationship was different. It carried the gentleness, faithfulness, and safety she had prayed for all along. Years later, she looked back and said, "Every tear I cried, every lonely night, every prayer I thought went unheard, God was listening. His promise didn't fail me. It just came later than I expected, but in a way more beautiful than I imagined." That story reflects the heart of God's promise. You may not see it today, but His word over your life has not been canceled. Every hidden prayer has been collected by Him, and every tear has meaning. His promise that you will be loved in the way your heart was created to be loved is still alive, still unfolding, still being written into your story. Hold on to hope. Refuse to let delays convince you that God is done. He is not finished. His promise still stands, and when it comes to pass, you will see with your own eyes that He was faithful all along. So lift your head and keep your heart steady. The season you're in is not your final chapter. God is sending someone who will truly love you, not halfway, not conditionally, but fully and faithfully. Hold on to hope, because the author of love is still writing your story. And when His answer arrives, you will look back and say, "It was worth every moment of waiting."